line. Well, I'm joined now by two people who are grappling at the other end of things, that is within the university system. Professor Deborah Humphreys is Vice-Chancellor of the University of Brighton and Chair of the University Alliance. And Mike Nicholson is the Director of Missions at the University of Bath. Thanks very much for joining us, both of you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Morning, afternoon, forgive me. Mike, let me start with you. Is it fair to say that you are now looking at admitting one way or another more people than you would have before the policy changed yesterday?
I think it's fair to say that we are looking to admit the same number of students that we plan to admit. Everybody seems to have forgotten there is a pandemic on, and we have been planning for the last 2 or 3 months to take an intake of around 3,600 students at Bath. And all of our planning has been on that basis. So what we are saying to students is if you get a regrade that would allow you to then meet the conditions of the offer now, then in all likelihood it will be 2021 entry, because we've got to put the safety, security of our campus community and the wider population of Bath first in this situation.
So the concern of someone like Jess, who we heard earlier, who will be taking her A-levels in 2021, is justified. There will be fewer spaces, unless something radical happens to your capacity, there'll be fewer spaces for those taking A-levels in 2021 because you're taking 2020 students and asking them to defer.
Well, one thing that I haven't heard mentioned so far is the announcement about Brexit will have an impact on undergraduate recruitment to UK universities. Yeah. So typically at Bath we get about 320 EU students coming each year. We think there'll be significantly less in 2021 as their fee status changes. So that may create some space, but there will also be issues, I guess. But we've got at least a year to plan for that, as opposed to the situation we find ourselves in at the minute where we've got often hours to plan.
Deborah, how is it looking at your end of things as far as numbers are concerned? The Education Secretary spoke specifically about lifting the cap on students. That will presumably make a difference. Should students who are looking at 2021, first-year A-level students, be concerned about diminished chances?
I think actually they should look for this year. If I look across the University Alliance members, there will be places in universities. Mike's very clear about there are limits and constraints in each university, but not everybody will be full yet. The impact of this will vary across the sector, but we do have to operate within considerable constraints in certain programmes where we're constrained on numbers and on facilities, and we do have to produce a safe, COVID-safe environment for staff and students to return to.
How important is COVID as part of your calculations on capacity?
Well, certainly at Brighton, and I know across the Alliance, we've been working on the basis of staff who can continue to work at home. We're asking them to do so, certainly through till January, because we need to keep the density of people on the campus as low as we possibly can. There clearly will be face-to-face teaching, but that keeping everybody safe, doing that in a very carefully managed way. We've risk assessed every single building, and we do that on the basis of a certain density. So it's important that we keep everybody safe, whilst ensuring that we're providing as much opportunity as possible for students who've had an extraordinary year.
Mike, the Education Secretary specifically made the point that the cap on student numbers has been lifted, but that doesn't magically create capacity. You presumably have constraints in terms of the number of lecturers you have, and of course constraints in terms of the amount of space you've got as well.
Yes, it's rather disingenuous to be talking about the student number control as though that's the only constraint on universities. Bath is a university where there's a lot of laboratory-based subjects, so it's not just the usual safety issues that we have about laboratories, it's running those laboratories in COVID-safe ways, and also of course thinking about building design. Very few universities were designed to cope with a pandemic, so you have often spaces which are not necessarily designed for safe egress, where you've got to give people 1.5, 2 metre gaps between them. So again, a lot of what's going on is looking at the available space we've got and repurposing some of it, which again puts additional constraints.
Deborah, should A-level students like Jess, first year at the moment, heading into her exams next summer. Should she be concerned at this point that the competition is going to be that much greater because of deferred students entering in 2021?
Well, I think Mike, I absolutely follow up on Mike's point.
Yeah.
We've had 24 hours to plan for this, but we've got a longer time to plan as a whole sector, and certainly across the Alliance and at Brighton for next year. So Jess, keep up with your studies. Do keep looking at higher education, but look at choices across the whole of the sector. The other thing that obviously we're anticipating as well from this Secretary of State is a potential white paper for the further reforms to higher education in the autumn. And we don't really know what that's going to lead to. So given all the uncertainty, it would be helpful if there was some thought about the timing of that.
Okay. Thank you. Deborah Humphreys, Mike Nicholson. Deborah Humphreys, Mike Nicholson. Deborah Humphreys, Mike Nicholson. Deborah Humphreys, Mike Nicholson. Deborah